She showed us her kitchen.
Mold, mold, mold. Down here.
And then her living room.
Mold. That's nothing but mold growing on the wall.
Tracy Grant says these are just the everyday battles that she and her 6-year-old fight at Eureka Gardens every day. Grant says she's been living here for 5 years and is a loyal tenant. But she says when she voices her concerns to management, the maintenance they do perform only fixes the problem temporarily. Tuesday night, tenants wrote a letter to HUD urging the department to take a closer look at the recent passing of an inspection done by the Real Estate Assessment Center. These were just a few of the issues tenants included in that letter.
My sister have all this mildew and the smell. It's terrible in there.
You don't even need to go in an apartment at Eureka Gardens to find the frustration of the people who live there.
If you can come look at this hole, I would like for you to see how big this hole is. You see this? Mold, whatever, fungus, green, whatever. That's not our job to clean that up. This right here came from this right here. Bam. We fix your steps, guys.
Our News 4 Jax investigation into complaints of deplorable conditions at the Eureka Gardens apartments is now in its second week. From allegations of mold, mildew, peeling paint, shoddy repairs, and leaking air conditioning units. Our cameras found leaking units hanging off of window after window today. Residents maintain these units are contributing to the mold. We also obtained this paperwork from tenants, an air conditioning addendum. They say it's the only way they're able to get an AC unit installed. It reads, quote, air conditioners must be installed by the contractor approved by this property. This check shows where one tenant paid that approved contractor, Mark Garrard, $50 to install that unit. Problem is, the state of Florida confirmed to me today, Mark Garrard is not a licensed contractor in the state. We do know from the property manager, Holly Garrard, that Mark is her husband. Tonight, we're also working to learn more about the man who profits from owning Eureka Gardens and who also vows to fix it. Reverend Richard Hamlet with the Global Ministries Foundation.
We're on this thing. I mean, we want to make sure that our residents have health, have healthy and housing units that are safe.
Safe for a property that's home to 866 people.
We have nothing to hide. We abide by the statutes that are the HUD regulations.
Reverend Richard Hamlet is a slumlord. True or false?
Absolutely false.
A multi-agency city sweep at this Westside low-income housing complex at issue the health and safety of the more than 850 adults and children who live there. What city inspectors at Eureka Gardens saw today nearly brought a council member to tears and did cause a council staff member to weep. Then they called Mayor Curry, who was angry over what he saw.
The sweep started this morning. The goal to see what needs to be done to make the homes at Eureka Gardens safe and to see if federal inspectors missed anything when the complex passed a HUD inspection in August.
The News 4 Jax investigators started looking into complaints last week when tenants called our newsroom for help. Our reporters have been following the inspection, the political fallout, and talking with residents about their predicament.
Arm in arm with Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry. It's not a position Tracy Grant pictured herself in just days ago when this mother and grandmother were showing our cameras what she says is mold in her kitchen, her bathroom, and on her floor. Then she called us again this week when she said property management was trying to cover it up by painting over it.
People are being treated like animals, and they treat animals way better than this.
She helped to organize the effort and even wrote a complaint, then sent to HUD and the mayor's office on Tuesday.
The city of Jacksonville is here today. Members of council are here today because this courageous woman shined a bright light on what many of us did not know was happening and going on.
Dwan Wilson says she can't believe the condition that her apartment is in.
I have 4 small children. My son has house.
City council members toured her apartment.
I still leaked species water into my apartment. They came in and they painted over.
Wilson says she has several problems in several areas of where she lives.
The mold is coming back through. It's coming back through and they painted over.
She says she has problems in her bathroom.
Sometimes if you turn it on, black stuff will come out of it.
Today, we learned why a federal HUD inspector gave Eureka Gardens the score of an 85B during its inspection in August. This after I tried to personally ask 3 HUD inspectors I met during the 2-day city raid, but they declined to talk with me on camera. These papers now show the inspector docked the complex 15 points out of 100 for issues found inside 24 randomly selected units. Mainly the problems were in the kitchen. Problems with the refrigerator or stove were the most common, as well as some peeling paint. We also learned the lowercase letter B is given if one or more non-life-threatening health and safety deficiencies are found, but no exigent fire safety health and safety deficiencies were observed, other than for smoke detectors. Boiling over across town at yet another low-income housing complex, Washington Heights.
Every time someone takes a shower up there, it leaks through.
Both properties are just 2 of 6 here in Jacksonville, all owned by the same man, Reverend Richard Hamlet with the Global Ministries Foundation. The others, Springfield Residential 1, Southside Apartments, Market Street Apartments, and Moncrief Village. News 4 Jax obtained an independent audit of Hamlet's Jacksonville-based business. It shows from 2012 to 2013, Hamlet reported close to $7.2 million in revenue for those 6 Jacksonville properties alone. Of that, almost all revenue, $7 million, came from tenant assistance payments, also known as your federal tax dollars at work, granted by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Promises made directly from HUD Field Office Director Elisa Scott Ford on the steps of City Hall, side by side with Congresswoman Corrine Brown. Scott Ford talked with News 4 Jax today for the very first time since our investigation began in September into deplorable living conditions we uncovered at Eureka Gardens. Mold and mildew, leaking AC units, faulty stairs, peeling paint, broken appliances and plumbing, plus gas leaks. Just some of the hundreds of violations we found with our cameras, then written up in a 2-day code sweep by the city of Jacksonville, finding 163 units with violations out of 400 at Eureka Gardens, or 40% of all the homes there. As we've reported, almost all of these code violations were absent from the HUD report in August that scored the complex a passing score of an 85, leading tenants to call News 4 Jax asking for help. One by one, Jacksonville city leaders and HUD filed in for a closed-door meeting today at City Hall, all converging to talk about deplorable living conditions at Eureka Gardens apartments, first exposed by News 4 Jax. Tenants called us to cry foul after this inspection report filed in August passed the property with the score of an 85. For the first time, Jacksonville's field office director with HUD, Alicia Scott Ford, admits there was a problem with that inspection. So you've invalidated the score of the 85?
Absolutely.
Is that rare for HUD?
Very rare.
Reverend Richard Hamlet is the face of the Global Ministries Foundation, the same company that owns the troubled Eureka Gardens. In 2012, Mayor Alvin Brown was the face of leadership in Jacksonville. News 4 Jax confirmed the deal to bring Hamlet's Tennessee-based nonprofit here to Jax 3 years ago went against all city protocols and was approved solely by Mayor Brown. This report, sent this month by financial advisors employed by the city to the Jacksonville Housing Finance Authority, cites our News 4 Jax investigation into deplorable living conditions at Eureka Gardens, and it outlines why the deal never should have been approved. Hendrickson says it's the job of the Jacksonville Housing Finance Authority to properly vet financial deals that involved low-income housing in Duval County. It's a transparent process that involves financial experts and all of City Council. However, Hendrickson says the board was shocked to learn of Hamlet's proposed purchase only through an ad in the paper.
A News 4 Jax investigation tonight into the living conditions at Eureka Gardens. For the first time, we're hearing from the owner of the troubled apartment complex about the existing living conditions and health concerns.
I apologize. I regret it, and I'm sorry. and I'm the owner, and it's on my watch, and I take responsibility for it. But I'm making the changes and adjustments now.
Weeks after our investigation of Eureka Gardens began, we are now able to ask the owner, Reverend Richard Hamlet, questions face-to-face.
He's here in Jacksonville until Thursday to meet with local leaders about the conditions at Eureka Gardens. He was at City Hall this morning for a meeting with HUD, a city councilman, and Congresswoman Corrine Brown as well. We were not allowed in that meeting, despite it being in a public room at City Hall. The News 4 Jax investigators are staying on top of this story.
Reverend Richard Hamlet strolls into City Hall all by himself. And this is how he responded when we told him his tenants are calling him a slumlord.
That is a poor word and an accurate word to describe us. We care for our residents. I could show you thousands of other slumlords in America.
Following a 2-hour closed-door meeting with federal, state, and local officials, the Reverend responded to questions the people here in Eureka Gardens say they've been asking for years.
Fix it or empty it.
That's what the head of Eureka Gardens Tenant Association says should happen with the complex. She met today with some of the people who live in the apartments that have been the center of our investigation into public housing problems and the tax dollars paid to the private company which runs it. Grant was not at the City Hall meeting where the head of the group that owns the complex, Richard Hamlet, met with HUD, city officials, and federal officials to see how the problems are being addressed. Hamlet came to the complex and told us 45% of the needed repairs are done.
Now the millionaire pastor who owns the Eureka Gardens apartment complex is taking more heat for investing more than $1 million in a Christian retreat center.
News 4 Jax investigator Tarek Miner traveled to Memphis and learned Reverend Richard Hamlet's foundation, Global Ministries, purchased a $1.25 million satellite campus earlier this year to expand his ministry, while hundreds of his Section 8 tenants continue to live in squalor.
Hidden behind this gated entrance is what some call a pastor's paradise on 18 acres of land. News 4 Jax has confirmed Richard Hamlet's Global Ministries Foundation paid $1.25 million just 9 months ago for this satellite campus called the Stephen Olford Center. It's a facility the pastor says is designed to teach men and women how to preach. We took the concerns of these residents to Reverend Richard Hamlet's foundation office.
Gentlemen!
Mr. Hamlet, how are you,
sir? Come on into this house.
Where Hamlet agreed to sit down with me.
Why not take that $1.5 million that you put into the Alford Center and put those into those properties?
Well, those are two different business plans. The Alford Center, we have donors that give to our foundation for specific ministry projects, and we work in 30 countries around the world.
Hamlet says his housing projects are a sustainable business and his ministry a separate entity within his business model. He says he made substantial improvements at his 3 troubled apartment complexes, evacuating 45 families out of their homes because of the poor conditions, and then moving them back in after the repairs were made earlier this year. But residents say the Reverend is blatantly neglecting the needs of the poor.
When you see some of the conditions that the people live in, how does that affect you?
It bothers me. My heart is to come and help those who are who need to be empowered, and those who are the disadvantaged. Excuse me. I mean, this is impromptu, but that's my mission. I want to build bridges to help those who are the least and the disadvantaged.
He's a criminal. He's a criminal masquerading as a man of God, and he's doing it with public money. He is taking advantage of people in the most vulnerable of circumstances and retaliated against people who complain.
Please get the camera over, please. Thank you.
No,
the camera, please.
You can't touch that battery. You just got. He just touched the camera. He just touched. That's battery. You're going to be in trouble now.
A confrontation with armed private security guards hired by the Global Ministries Foundation. All while the I-Team was trying to cover a crime walk at Washington Heights by Mayor Lenny Curry. His goal to go door to door and talk with the people that live here. Tenants have told the I-Team for 7 months now they are afraid to talk to the media or even possibly city leaders for fear of retaliation, like this mother of 4.
They need to step up their game.
They really need to. There's a lot of people out here that's clean and don't deserve for their apartment to fall down because they don't want to take care of things the right way.
She was too afraid to show her face, but she wanted us to see the mold in her shower and the cleaning product she uses every day to try to get it off.
Right now, Mayor Curry and Councilman Garrett Dennis are meeting with Senator Marco Rubio to discuss those living conditions.
This follows a closed-door meeting earlier today with the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development in Washington. And here at home, we're getting new information on living conditions at Washington Heights. Tarek has details of a city councilman's tour of the complex. But we begin in Washington, where the mayor is meeting with Senator Rubio. I-Team investigator Lindsay Gardner talked to them both, and she's joining us live with what they had to say. Lindsay.
Mary, Tom, we were inside here on the Senate office building moments ago where Senator Marco Rubio met with Mayor Lenny Curry and Councilman Garrett Dennis. That meeting going on still right now. More on that in just a moment. But first, for everyone at home, we are right next door to the Capitol building here in Washington, D.C. We are with the mayor and the councilman as they flew in first thing this morning. And I want to take you to some video where we were the first stop, and that was a meeting at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, as you mentioned. We were there as Mayor Curry and Councilman Dennis walked in to that meeting, greeted by more than a dozen HUD staffers. Secretary Julian Castro did not appear for our cameras. We were told he was on a call with the White House, but we're told he later did arrive. And Mayor Curry says he was engaged for right about an hour or so, asking very pointed questions about what's happening in Jacksonville, promising immediate help with the mold situation, and even going as far as to offer more federal resources to the problem in Jacksonville.
While this has been a long journey, a painfully long journey, if you look at from the moment in time when all this started, we shined a light, we shined it brighter, and kept pushing. And yeah, I'd like to see things move more quickly, but we're just going to keep pushing.
And Councilman Dennis, the tenants first reached out to you. What is your message to the tenants at Eureka Gardens tonight?
That, your mayor, your city council person, we're here, we're on the front lines, and we're going to continue to stay in the fight until it's done.
They then met with Senator Marco Rubio. I had a chance to also interview Senator Rubio about 30 minutes ago, and here's what he had to say about what is happening with these taxpayer-funded HUD properties in Jacksonville. You've called for changes at the federal level with HUD. How much of that is due to what we exposed at Eureka Gardens?
I think it's almost exclusively due to that at that point. It wouldn't have happened without it. The bottom line is this, that HUD has an inspection process that they follow to inspect whether a facility is safe. This facility, Eureka Gardens, passed the inspection. Not once, but twice, repeatedly passed this inspection. And anyone who visits there and looks at it knows immediately that is not a place where people should be living. And so the fact that it passed their inspection not once but twice tells you there need to be significant reforms in the way HUD carries out these inspections.
An embattled owner of this apartment community officially looking to leave town. A big development in an ongoing 8-month I-Team investigation that grabs citywide and national attention and continues to get results. The troubled Eureka Gardens in Washington Heights are officially on the market for sale.
The I-Team broke the news with a push alert just before noon today that the owner of Global Ministries Foundation is looking to sell all of his Jacksonville properties. It's a move Mayor Curry has called for from the start. Jim Pickett, his reaction from tenants. Tarek Minor standing by with a look at other issues Reverend Hamlet has been facing. First, Lindsay Gardner, live at City Hall. Lindsay, what did the mayor have to say?
Mayor Curry told me today here at City Hall, it's the tenants at Eureka Gardens that truly deserve all the praise tonight. And he said while today's development is, quote, big, he also promised the city of Jacksonville would not stop pushing Reverend Richard Hamlet's Global Ministries Foundation for changes here in our city. My colleague Jim Pickett has been on the ground at Eureka Gardens all day speaking with tenants about this development. He joins us there live. Jim.
Lindsay, talking to people here, most of them are pretty happy about this property going up for sale. Some of them a bit confused about what the end result of this might be. But for the most part, construction is continuing here, at least the rehab on all of those apartments. I can show you some of the video that we shot a little bit earlier today. I did see a lot of construction going on, and people want to make sure that if this is sold, that the changes are going to take place. That was the main concern. One person who has really been pushing for change out here is Reverend Mark Griffin. He's with Wayman Ministries out here. In fact, they were saying today They want to buy this property. They've been involved out here since 2007. And you remember, that's when Eureka Gardens had a terrible crime problem. They were considered the murder capital here in Jacksonville. Well, now they're not just a murder capital from then. They are now considered, according to Griffin, the mold capital. And he wants to change that.
So we have been trying to purchase Eureka Gardens since the previous owners owned it. And our goal really is to take the money and reinvest it back into the community. So for us, it's about these residents. And so whether we are the owners ultimately or someone else, we share the goal of making life better for them.
An 8-month I-team investigation into deplorable living conditions at Eureka Gardens continues to get results. Today, Senator Marco Rubio walked the property for the first time.
The senator told me he wants to follow the money. He was here at Eureka Gardens. He went inside these 2 units today, as well as walking the property and seeing other repairs like these that are still undone. He says with GMF getting $6 million a year from HUD to run 7 Jacksonville properties alone, it's inexcusable that these repairs aren't completed. And now he wants the nonprofit to open up its books for federal investigators.
When I get back to Washington Monday, my hope is that we'll have all of those properties examined and these people put out of business, because what they do to people is outrageous. It's a slumlord, pure and simple. And my hope is we can even get the Justice Department interested in this a little bit.
Senator Marco Rubio calling for a federal criminal investigation of Reverend Richard Hamlet's Global Ministries Foundation after touring Eureka Gardens for the first time. This is how he greeted GMF representatives first thing this morning.
What you guys have done is horrifying and unexcusable.
The breaking news comes from Senator Marco Rubio in response to our I-team investigation of Eureka Gardens and the owners of the complex.
Lindsay Gardner is joining us with breaking details. Lindsay.
Tom and Mary, in the last 10 minutes, I just received this email from Senator Rubio's staff telling me that the senator sent 4 letters to 4 different federal departments here today, calling for 4 different federal investigations stemming from our I-team investigation of what happened at Eureka Gardens. Now, this is what we know. Senator Rubio sent letters to the Department of Justice, the Treasury Department, HUD, as well as a Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. A snippet of what he wrote to the Secretary of the Treasury, that's Secretary Jacob Blue. He says the practice of receiving federal dollars without spending much on repairs raises concern regarding the organization of the nonprofit and the purpose of transferring funds between Reverend Hamlet's nonprofit organization. He also encouraged HUD to oversee, to do a complete investigation of other nonprofits like Global Ministries, and he urged the Senate Committee of Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs to hold a hearing to investigate property owners like GMF and conduct oversight of HUD's inspection process.